Are you prepared for more action?
Well, thank you. We are clearly against any unilateral and protectionist moves. We don't want to have a trade war with anybody. We are still trying to avoid one. But if a trade war is forced on us, we have to fight back.
How are you prepared to fight back?
We will take all the measures necessary. I think you have already seen the announcement made by the Chinese Minister of Commerce. And we will see what we'll do next.
So what areas do you believe, Ambassador, there are for cooperation between the U.S. and China?
I think that there is a great potential and indeed good prospects for cooperation between China and the United States. But the key is that both sides have to take a cooperative and a constructive approach. A confrontational one will not help anybody. And besides, a lot of accusations made this time are not supported by evidence. For instance, Chinese laws protect intellectual property rights, and we are ready to help any business that see violations. But there's no evidence provided. It helps nobody to make sweeping accusations.
There are some laws, though, Ambassador, in China that when foreign firms have to work within China, you do have to transfer some of the technology know-how, which is one of the points that the Trump administration is fighting against. Do you believe that there are no areas of cooperation when it comes to intellectual property theft, of allegations of it?
There's no law or regulation in China that would force technology transfer. There's no such a law. And I think businesses will only make the deals that they believe are good for them. But if they have any complaints, they should resort to Chinese law, and we will help them.
The U.S. Trade Representative has yet to come out with a final list of tariff items, and they will do so in the next 2 weeks. Do you expect any concessions or coordination on which items could be included or left out?
We always believe that any disputes, any differences between the two countries should be worked out by dialogue and consultations. But we certainly will not yield to any threat, coercion, or intimidation.
These sort of U.S. actions, will they have any impact on China's support in dealing with North Korea?
Well, I think that these two issues are different ones. But at the same time, if anything is done that would undermine the broad mutual confidence between the two countries, it might affect other areas. But we'll have to wait and see.
Those areas include foreign policy?
We'll see what is done by the U.S. side. Then we'll decide.
Bloomberg News also reported that China could be considering cutting back on its purchases of U.S. treasuries. That would be an economic action. Would that also be included in your thoughts?
We're looking at all options. And that's why we believe any unilateral and protectionist moves would hurt everybody, including the United States itself. And it will certainly hurt the daily life of American middle-class people and the American companies and the financial market.
How will other economies that depend on Chinese trade be affected by the latest U.S. actions?
Well, you see, in today's world, economies of various countries are very closely interconnected. So there is really a community of shared interest among different economies. For instance, we have some surplus, trade surplus with the United States, which is quite big. We want to cut it down. I think there's agreement between China and the United States that this has to be reduced for the benefits of both countries. But at the same time, we have huge deficit with other countries. Most of our neighbors, we have deficit with them. So this is a good illustration of the supply chain in the world. So people have to be careful when they take actions. It might hurt everybody, including themselves.
The Trump administration is asking Beijing to cut the annual trade deficit with China, specifically by $100 billion. Are you looking at plans on how to do this?
I think we agree that the deficit will have to be cut. But we have to look at specific sectors, specific products. And you see, we in China, we are ready to buy more, much more from the US. But is the US ready to sell more to us? We still don't know yet. So I don't think it's helpful to set an arbitrary number as a target. We have to look at the specifics.
So you are waiting for specific U.S. demands. Who are you talking to right now in the government, and what do you expect them to ask from you, and what can you give to the American government?
Actually, there's an ongoing conversation between the two governments. That's why we don't quite understand why such a unilateral action is taken.
I think the belief right now, not only within the United States, but also among other countries, is that in many fields like steel, aluminum, and intellectual property, China has not been playing fair. A lot of demand out there for a level playing field. How do you respond to that?
Actually, we are not the largest exporter of steel and aluminum to the United States. We are not. We only have a very small portion.
Having said that, steel and aluminum tariffs will impact you. So how do you plan to deal with the overcapacity in your own ports?
I think there's overcapacity in many countries. So we have to work together on this excess. It cannot be solved by just one country, by China alone.
If it cannot be solved by one country, when do you plan to take your issues to the WTO?
You see, over the last few years, we are cutting down our capacity. Hopefully, other countries will do the same. And we always believe in and we are committed to the multilateral trading system. And we are trying to strengthen the multilateral trading system. Hopefully, others will not do anything to undermine it.
What about proposed new restrictions on investments from China that the Treasury Secretary is going to look at? How will this impact Chinese companies and your relationship with the U.S.?
I don't think that makes any good economic or political sense. Such restrictions are not based on very good reasons, and they are not helping the American economy. They will probably hurt American towns, cities, and states. They will hurt the local economy. They will cause job loss for Americans. I don't think that these things would help anybody.